Here we have a speed test between two brand new phones and one slightly older but slightly more premium, if you want to call it that. The Realme X50 versus the Realme X2 Pro, and we've thrown the Redmi K30 5G in there. Both the Realme X50 and the Redmi K30 are using a brand new chipset, the Snapdragon 765G. That is the brand new mid-range chipset from Snapdragon. The Realme X2 Pro is using a slightly older but more premium chipset, the Snapdragon 855 Plus. Still the best flagship chipset you can buy in the Android world right now, but we have to wait only a few short weeks until we start getting the new crop of flagship phones with the brand new Snapdragon 865. This is an app opening test, simultaneously opening a range of different apps in the phones. Lifestyle apps, social media apps, video apps, and then some more intensive games, for example, PUBG, FIFA, and some other games with large opening screens. You can see for yourself which phone opens the apps first. The Realme X2 Pro does on average open the apps faster than the other two, and then the other two phones do battle it out, sometimes the X50 being first, sometimes the K30 5G being first. All in all, the time difference between them is a matter of a few seconds here and there, and so in daily usage it's not going to matter to you. What may impact your usage of the devices and how quickly you flick through things is RAM management. All three phones have 8GB of RAM, so they should manage all of these apps in the same way. Actually, it's going to come down more to the operating system on top of Android to how it manages it. Up until now, all the apps have been kept in memory, but you can see the X2 Pro actually has to reload PUBG, whilst the other two have kept it in memory. In previous tests, it has kept that app in memory. Not a big deal in any case, but flicking through to another app, which is Taobao, you can see that the Redmi K30 5G does have to reload it. Slightly surprising because usually with 8GB of RAM, it will keep all of these apps in memory, but you can see the X2 Pro just has to reload Meituan, the food delivery app. Moving on to iQIYI, which is the Chinese version of Netflix, it's kept in memory on all of the phones. And finally, moving on to PUBG once again to see if it's still in memory, and this time it is in memory on all the phones. Something I am most eager to see is how these new phones with the brand new Snapdragon 765G processor cope in the Antutu Benchmark versus the older but more premium 855 Plus. Is it better to buy a slightly older flagship killer or newer mid-range smartphones? 457,000 on the X2 Pro is very standard for the Snapdragon 855 Plus. And there you have it, 332,000 on the Realme X50. And how will the Redmi K30 5G fare? It comes in slightly under the X50, but it is more or less the same. So the 765G is a brand new chipset, but it is still mid-range, so gets beaten out by the slightly older flagship. If you look closer at the results of the test, you can see that actually the CPU of this new 765G is very comparable to the more premium, but if you look at the GPU, that's where it struggles. The GPU score on both of the phones with the 765G comes in about half of the X2 Pro. Moving on to the video export test, the two phones on the left can only deal with 1080p video. The X2 Pro can deal with 4K video, but to make it fair, it's 1080p video on all the phones. A 5-minute video can be exported in Quad HD on the two phones on the left and in full 4K on the Realme X2 Pro. Surprisingly, the two new mid-range phones were first and second to finish, and the X2 Pro came in last, exporting the 5-minute long 1080p video into Quad HD. We all need to know how quick the fingerprint sensors are because the Redmi and the Realme X50 have it on the side because of their LCD displays. The X2 Pro, being a slightly more premium flagship killer, puts it underneath the OLED display. You'll notice that the Redmi and the Realme X2 Pro do unlock at exactly the same time. There's really nothing in it, but you can see the X50 is actually quite a lot slower at unlocking than the X2 Pro. That means that the X50 should also be slower than the Redmi K30 because the Redmi K30 is about the same as the X2 Pro, but actually if you turn on from a black screen and not a lock screen, the X50 becomes quicker. So the hardware is very comparable, but the Realme X50 just slows up the animation if it's on lock screen rather than being on a black screen. Takeaways for me on this test show that the 765 does have some potential, But right now, if you really don't need 5G, then flagship killers with 4G chipsets like the X2 Pro are still a really good deal. Subscribe for all the latest tech news and tech videos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.